Chicago Bears at the Minnesota Vikings. Vikings by 7. They're 11-2. Bears are 4-9. Just played a couple weeks ago here.
Yeah.
In overtime.
Right. So it's tough to know what to make of that game because it was one of those games that Chicago's had a few of this year where they get annihilated in the first half. And you're like, oh, this is going to be a complete beatdown. The Vikings were stomping them, and then Chicago executed the comeback, got it all the way back to overtime, and then lost the game anyway. It's like, and the line, like Vegas is convinced that actually the Vikings are way better than the Bears, and the first half is more indicative of what this dynamic is. But they did take it to overtime last time. It's a strange. I don't know what to do with those games, like Chicago versus Minnesota, Chicago versus Detroit, Green Bay even. Like these games where they've actually kept it close, even though for a period it looked like they were getting blown out.
I mean, they're also division games too, so sometimes those end up closer than the records would indicate. I mean, the bigger issue for me is trying to figure out these ebbs and flows of Caleb Williams and the offense's season.
Right, but usually those division games that are closer, they are actually closer. This one, for at least the first half, wasn't. I mean, they were getting destroyed, and then it became close somehow in the second half.
So what do you do with Caleb Williams' season here, where it's 3 bad games, 3 good games, 3 bad games, coach gets fired, 2 good games, ish.
It's a roller coaster.
And then probably 2 bad. I mean, I don't know how you put the Detroit game was like a bad half and a good half. You know, I mean, what do you even do? Because last week's game against San Francisco, we broke it down the other day. The stats were fine. 17 of, I mean, the non-sack stats, 17 of 23, 2 touchdowns, passer rating of 116, but sacked 7 times, and sacked on. And here's the more mind-blowing number. Our friend Josh Norris pointed it out more and more. He was sacked 7 times and pressured 9 times.
Yeah.
So the pressure to sack rate percentage, 7 out of 9. So 78% of the times he was pressured, it turned into a sack.
Which is a trend.
The league averages are like 15%, 18% of that.
But even
he was
this
at
year,
78%, and this year he's over 31%.
He's the highest quarterback in the NFL in terms of pressure to sack rate.
That's a quarterback-driven stat. Right. Is when you're pressured, what happens? And that's why I asked the question to Brandon Thorne yesterday, and I struggle with, like, what is the Bears' offensive line? Because if you look at sack totals, you would say, yeah, they're bad. The quarterback gets sacked a lot, but we know a lot of that's on the QB. So I think that was the discouraging part if you're a Bears fan and you're looking at Caleb Williams, and we all want this linear development, right? Keep getting better every single week. You almost we fired the coach. We had a couple good game against Green Bay, good game against Minnesota. Unbelievable throw to put the Bears in position against Minnesota to get to overtime and set up the overtime game where they lost. Fine. And then last week looked like the same games that coach got fired for.
Right.
Shane Waldron got fired for. So that was discouraging, I would say.
And to put that stat in some context, I mean, that is 3 times higher than the best numbers in the NFL. Like Josh Allen is at 9%, Jordan Love is at 9%. And that's not necessarily a escapability style thing. Even quarterbacks that hold onto the ball a long time. Lamar Jackson's at 12%, Anthony Richardson's at 12%, Bo Nix is at 13%. So it's 3 times higher than like the best quarterbacks in the NFL. It's more than double the kind of the average level. It's a catastrophic number. I mean, that's abysmal. And now you're going up again against this Brian Flores defense that forces mistakes, that forces indecision, hesitation. He had a pretty good game against them the last time in totality, but he did have 3 turnover-worthy plays, which ties for the highest he's had in a single game this season.
That was the game where he had, the 5 big-time throws where he just looked special.
Right.
Like the special plays came out, the bad plays came out, sure, but it was like, all right, we're at least seeing him playing free and easy, and that disappeared the last game and a half.
But it was a game, I mean, even if Caleb is able to play at his extremely high level and have 5 big-time throws and, be looking special, getting away without an interception with 3 turnover-worthy plays is, I think, an interesting data point there when you're repeating that matchup.
Yeah, for sure. So I think something to keep an eye on there. I'm having a tough time predicting what you're going to get from Caleb Williams every single week. Last week looked rough. And then Minnesota, we have talked about Sam Darnold, MVP candidate, the way he's playing. But for me, it's really the totality of this Minnesota offense. As much as we've talked about Flores' defense this year, Minnesota's offense rounding into, I don't know, as well-rounded an offense in the NFL. They attack down the field. They have a tight end that is dependable in Hawkinson. Run the ball a little bit with Aaron Jones. They've been outstanding in the red zone, especially schematically, and that pairs well with the way the defense is played.
Yep, absolutely. I mean, the Vikings, we keep talking about this NFC Championship matchup, right? Detroit, Philadelphia, the collision course they're on. I mean, the Vikings keep winning. It may not look as dominant or as convincing necessarily overall as, say, Detroit, but
it's more convincing than 2 years ago, the 2022
right.
team.
I mean, where they felt sort of fraudulent, or at least, I mean, that's the game. That's the year where they end up getting upset in the playoffs by the Giants. It's like, you see,
came good,
right?
Yeah.
11, whatever it was, 11 one-score games.
We had to be right about one of those fraudulent teams, though.
Yeah,
they both proved us right.
It is different to that, and they are more well-rounded. Like Detroit's offense is phenomenal, but their defense is now a mash unit with 13 guys on IR. The Vikings' defense is pretty good. So you've got good defense, good offense, but they don't seem to have these like complete start-to-finish games where they're playing at a really high level. They do it in the first half, or they do it in the second half, and it's not quite been strung together as a complete dominant performance. But they are winning. You know, there's 6 straight wins. They're 11-2. They're only a game back from Detroit. Like, they are kind of looming as this threat that nobody's talking about necessarily in the NFC.
And then if you look at their schedule too, Minnesota, this is their easiest game, and it's a division game. So they play the Bears this week.
Right.
And then if you want to put to the test how dangerous are they in the playoff, well, at Seattle, against Green Bay, and then at Detroit the last 3 weeks. So the NFC West leader, the Packers, who are a game behind them in the North, and then the Lions, who are a game ahead of them in the North. So we'll see. We'll learn plenty about Minnesota, but I think I feel better about them now. Maybe, you know, they've won 6 straight. I get it. I think the Rams game, they just lost those 2 straight games. They lost to the Rams because they played the Lions the week before. The Lions basically beat them twice in a row, right? Because the Lions hangover on that Thursday night game.
And that's
it.
That Rams
for
game.
Minnesota.
That Rams game is the only one this season where they've been sort of conclusively outplayed. I mean, the Lions game
just
was really
straight outplayed.
Yeah, the Lions game was really close, and it was a very interesting back and forth schematic battle. Like that was a tight arm wrestle. The Rams game was the one this season where they just have been second best, clearly.
Yeah. So look, I think I'm just more of a believer in Minnesota now, I think, than I was earlier in the year, because it's all rounding into form. They're going to give up a lot of yards, yes, but they can create turnovers, create indecision. They can make you one-dimensional. They can do a lot on defense, and then it can win every single way on offense now, the way Darnold's playing. So if he keeps it up, they're right in the mix. Can they cover the 7?
Yeah, I think they can. The other dynamic at play is Chicago's defense that, remember, last year it felt like they overachieved relative to talent level. This season they picked up the way they left off last season. It's like, maybe this is a really well-coached unit that's able to, outperform everything. The defense kind of fallen off in recent weeks. I remember for all the crap Eberflus was taking about, in-game decisions, time management, offense struggling, he was a defensive-minded coach, and the defense was the unit that was overperforming consistently. Maybe getting rid of that guy has caused some problems on that side of the ball.
Yeah, they have not been as good. Lost some players up front. Gervin Dexter's been
and that's
injured.
A huge part as well. Yeah, injuries have hit. But, it's possibly worth thinking about. You did get rid of the guy who's the defensive mind, and suddenly, not suddenly, but the defense now is worse than it used to be.
By the way, if you were unaware, there's another Monday night doubleheader this week. This is game 1 of the Monday night doubleheader. Yeah, the NFL has played with this a lot this year. Which are these dueling kickoffs, or are we getting the hour stagger? This is 8 and 8:30. We're back to the 8 and 8:30. Ugh. They've experimented with 7:30 and 8:15. This is 8 and 8:30 kickoffs. I don't mind it. I like the double screen. I think you could pay attention. It saves us from having to watch 9 games in the 1 o'clock window. So I like that.
Sure.
So anyway, Vikings by 7, Monday Night Football, game 1.
I'm going with Minnesota to cover that. I hate it, but I do feel like Caleb doesn't play as well as last time. I feel like even if he does, the mistakes he makes will count when they didn't last time. And I just think the Bears aren't as good as they were then. So
I'm taking another underdog, man. Bears to keep it within 7. They'll keep it close enough. Harry's going to take Minnesota on this one.
thanks for watching all the way to the end of our video.
For more great content, click here to subscribe and here to watch another video. We'll see you again soon.